Good evening and welcome to Watchmen on the Wall. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we speak to Grant Banwell of Joshua Generation Church here in the Western Cape about a recent article in the Sunday Times that misrepresented their stand on corporal punishment. Grant, thanks for talking to us at Watchmen on the Wall. We've been here a few weeks ago to speak to Andrew Selly, your senior pastor, about the Human Rights Commission's investigation of Joshua Generation Church for teaching a biblical principle. Spare the rod, spoil the child, which is a biblical principle. Now, here's the thing. All churches, Bible-believing churches, teach the biblical principle. So you think they're using your church as a test case?
I do think there is a precedent that's trying to be set. One of the things, as I've come to understand in our country, it's very hard to change the constitution of our country. The constitution tries to protect various rights within democracy, and one of the rights is freedom of religion. The other one is the rights of a child.
Because you don't teach abuse. You don't preach going overboard or in anger, hitting a child, bruising a child.
That's right, yeah. I mean, we would stand so against the abuse of children. I mean, it's a huge problem in the country. And we're working hard even already into various areas. I think as a church alone, we are working, we support 330 children's and underprivileged orphans in the townships. We are working into the areas to try and better society. We're against abuse. But there's a vast difference between abuse and proper use, and the state is interpreting proper use now as abuse, and based upon our belief of the Word of God, there's a conflict of opinion, really a conflict of belief happening right now. And if the state should begin to enforce their belief system on us, we lose the right to interpret the Bible the way most Christians would interpret it, and that creates again that new precedent that means we would lose freedom of religion in the country.
And we're back this time to talk about media bias. And I'm obviously referring to the article in the Sunday Times that sort of positions your church as a shady kind of cult that's bent on teaching your people to abuse children. That's how the article comes across. But before you answer that, I want to inform you that the Kiriari Training Center was investigated also by the Human Rights Commission earlier this year. And they found them guilty of discrimination against homosexuals. And the reason they investigated them in the first place was also because of a Sunday Times article that alleged that Kiriari Training Center had a cure for homosexuals. Now, nowhere in their documentation does it say that, and nor did the senior pastor, Cornelius van Heiningen, actually allege that about homosexuals. There was nothing of that of the sort. The Sunday Times just made that up, and that elicited a response from the then Deputy Minister of Justice, Andries Nel, who ordered the Human Rights Commission to go and investigate this Christian ministry for alleged human rights abuses. But we interviewed Pastor Cornelius about this issue, and this is what he said. So how did this thing get into the media? How did this complaint start against you?
Oh, somebody phoned me, a reporter, and he asked me a few questions over the phone. And the next moment I saw Sunday Times, there's this article.
Now, what were they saying about you in the media?
That we cure homosexuals, and that we compare it with a rehabilitation center. That I never did in that context. I just used the example of the free will, as somebody would have a free will to go to the army. Now, if I said that, they would say I compared it to the army. But I just used the example of a free will, that somebody has a free will to say, I want to change, and that we honor the human rights of those people that has a desire to change.
But you haven't, as Pastor Cornelius van Heiningen from Kiriari Training Center, you've never ever put a statement out there that you can cure homosexuals.
No.
In fact, I've read your response to that, where you say, we don't see homosexuality as a disease that needs a cure. But when people ask for help to change, that you can offer that help. But you don't force that on people.
We cannot force it on people. We can bring them to the truth of the word. And as the word says, the truth will set you free. So I've been set free by truth. You and so many Christians, we are set free by truth. And for the same, we proclaim the truth, that people that submit to that truth, people that desire that truth, can see the result of that truth under the guidance of the Spirit.
So, Grant, you can see by that insert that the liberal media has a real hostility towards the Christian church. There's been a lot of distortions, a lot of fabrications about the church, where it stands, what it teaches. And I think now Joshua Generation Church has been the focus of these fabrications and distortions. Tell me, how did the church, when you initially saw the article in the Sunday Times, how did you guys respond to it?
Well, Errol, thank you for this time. I really do appreciate it. I think at the outset of reading the article, I think we were quite disappointed. And knowing the vastness of sexual abuse, physical abuse, as well as verbal abuse across our country, to imply in an article that a church is promoting abuse really did sadden our hearts and upset us. And I think if you look at the article, it's written in a very inflammatory manner, trying to evoke some sort of a response, not even from Christians, but from people across South Africa. And I think that for us was quite upsetting. You know, Errol, just prior to the Sunday Times releasing the article, Andrew was traveling abroad and he was in Horsham in the United Kingdom. And Andrew sent them the 2 letters from the Human Rights Commission that we'd received, as well as a copy of our manual, and explained to them that the manual is not to be read as a standalone document, that it's supposed to be read in conjunction with teachings and other material. And when you start to pull quotes out of context, obviously it's going to be inflammatory and it's going to invoke those emotions, and it's going to be false, to be quite frank.
Yeah. And I think that was what the liberal media, the intention was, to make you guys look bad, because the Sunday Times has proven that with the Kriari situation as well.
You know, Errol, I don't mind if secular newspapers write articles that are truthful. Whether the truth exposes the church, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free. So I think that's very important to remember. The article mentions that the manual is under investigation from the South African Human Rights Commission. That is untrue. The manual has never been under investigation. The issue around spanking has been under investigation. So that already at the beginning of the article is not true. Then there's also the issue around that we promote pain as a training tool within our manual, which is also untrue. And so I really want this manual to be seen in context, and the issue of spanking to be seen in context, because spanking is not the only option. It forms a very small part of the responsibility of every single husband and wife to raise their kids in a godly family. We have subsequently written an article and sent it back to the Sunday Times, and we'll see what the response is.
Yeah, we'll also keep an eye on it from Watchmen on the Wall side to see if they publish that letter and correct a lot of the statements they've made. Now, the article that was just above your article also talked about religious leaders meeting in Pretoria to resist government's introduction of laws that would criminalize spanking. That article also was incorrect, because the leaders met in Pretoria not to discuss the spanking issue. It's just one of many issues. They met to talk about the attacks on religious freedoms and what is happening to Joshua Generation Church, Kriari Training Center, to adoption agencies, and the state is beginning to step in and tell churches and Christian organizations what they can and cannot believe, and what they can and cannot teach. So, Grant, are you alarmed at the attacks on religious freedoms in South Africa?
Yes, we are, Errol. You know, it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said, in the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but rather the silence of our friends. And I think this is not a time for the church in South Africa to remain silent. And I think this is a time for me when the church in South Africa really needs to rise up and really pray and unite as the body of Christ under Jesus Christ, and wrestle this through. Not be quiet, not be silent. You know, if something pricks your conscience, you don't keep quiet. You stand up for it. And I think, Errol, that's something that you have done very well on your Watchmen on the Wall show, as well as the Family Policy Institute, is that you're enabling Christians to actually stand up for what they believe in and stand up for what they believe to be right. And the Bible actually says, if I do anything against my conscience, I sin. And I think this issue around religious freedom is far bigger than we think it is. And I want to just ask the church just to get together and really just in prayer, just unite. As well as, and I want to thank the church as well, just for how they have rallied alongside us with regards to this particular issue, because I think it's, as you've mentioned already, it's not the first. There's going to be more issues,
yes.
and churches and Christians need to speak up.
Andrew Selim did an interview with Gateway News, and he said that there is this group of people somewhere in the area where Joshua Generation Church is located that is very anti-Christian and anti-Joshua Generation Church, and are using the Human Rights Commission to grind their axe with the church. You got any information on that?
Yeah, look, I think, when we looked a little bit deeper, obviously a complainant had raised a concern with the Human Rights Commission, which has previously been mentioned around our teaching on spanking. And when we looked a little bit deeper, we did discover that this particular group of people is obviously a minority group, but I think in South Africa these days minority groups have very loud voices, particularly because the Christians are being silent. And so when we looked a little bit deeper, we did notice that there was a group called End Hereditary Religion, which is obviously, if you go onto their Facebook page, it's worthwhile having a look. There are a number of photos of the different faith symbols with X's through them, and so the aim is really one to get rid of a religion as we know, a traditional religion, which really has stood the test of time over many years and really has had a massive influence on ensuring that families remain healthy and whole, and that children are raised in environments that are conducive to good growth, and as well that they then, when they get to the teenage years and adults, they're well-rounded, they understand love, they understand boundaries, and also they grow up to be adults that can love other adults.
Now, the couple in the photograph in the article, Mr. and Mrs. Mostert, are they members of this church?
No, before the complaint, we didn't know them at all. We hadn't even seen them.
So how did they get the information about your teaching manual on child discipline?
I think what we've tried to do over the years is, because we realize the vastness of the problem in South Africa, we want to make manuals available to people that they can download those manuals to, and raising children is just one example of a manual, that they can download them and actually apply biblical principles into society to ensure that society remains strong. So the manuals were part of other manuals that are on our website.
Okay, available online.
Available online for download for everybody. Yes.
So they downloaded this?
So they must have, we're assuming, that they downloaded that manual from our website.
And they must have said, here we've got something that we can attack Joshua Generation Church with. Went to the Human Rights Commission and lodged a complaint.
Correct.
And then the Human Rights Commission didn't want to tell you who the complainant was.
Now, initially when we engaged them, we obviously engaged them first with a telephone call, because we always believe that face-to-face or telephonic communication is better than just an email. So we initially engaged them that way, and they said that they could not reveal to us who the complainant was. They then gave us an extension to reply to the complaint, so we did. That's where Gerard Claessens, the lawyer, got involved. And we then responded on the 17th of September, which was the cutoff date, with a letter, a 63-page document outlining a response to that particular complaint.
But we've just seen in the media recently a report of a young boy, I think it was high school, that attacked a teacher with a broom.
Yes.
He attacked and assaulted the teacher went running out. It's been all over the media. And then another report on the same day about a student shooting a teacher in the leg. Yeah. This is all happening in our schools. Yeah. And we know that the same problem we're facing now with the government wanting to criminalize parents for spanking their children. They removed spanking from our school classrooms, and now we see the result of that.
Yes.
And what the church is trying to do is trying to instill values in the home, so that maybe that would be manifested in the schools and in society. And so you can see this attack coming against not only society, our educational system, but now the church, which appears to be the last bastion against government interference.
Yeah. Errol, I've had the privilege of raising 4 healthy kids. And my oldest is now 15, my youngest is 6. And the correct application of Scripture has ensured that my kids have grown up to be healthy individuals, understanding right from wrong, also understanding boundaries. And so we promote first and foremost other methods of discipline rather than the use of the rod. Positive affirmation, removing your child from a dangerous situation, a firm no with a child that is learning boundaries. You know, when a child is young, he's inquisitive. He doesn't yet understand right from wrong, dangerous from safe.
That's right.
And so what we then do with a young child is you would positively affirm the child, remove the child from the situation. As the child starts to get older and starts to develop his senses and understanding of what right is from wrong, dangerous from safe, then when they are overstepping the mark in terms of things like no, positive affirmation, my son, don't do that, it's going to hurt you, then we have to move towards an alternative form of discipline, which in many cases is spanking.
Absolutely, and I think that's where most parents would agree with you, is that sometimes that kind of corrective measure is necessary because you're trying to protect your child from a greater harm. So the pain you're inflicting is a little pain compared to a child putting their hands on a hot stove or running into a parking lot and being run over by a car. Most people would reasonably expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Because you've got all these attacks coming against the Christian church from all kinds of groups, and you have the liberal mainstream media that is part of that.
Yeah.
Not reporting the truth, not giving both sides of the story,
Yeah.
but acting as activists on the other side. And I mean, how do you get the truth out if the entire mainstream media
Yes.
is attacking the church and not allowing truth to get out there?
Yes.
So, Grant, we want to thank you for speaking to us, and we probably will need to come back at some future date to continue this discussion, especially when the Human Rights Commission makes a ruling on this issue. So thank you. As you can no doubt see by that interview with Grant, there's still a lot of hostility in the liberal media against the Christian church. Next up, we speak to Hetty Brits about the white paper on the family. Hetty Brits, it's great to be talking to you here at the Convergence Conference in Stellenbosch. We're going to be talking about the white paper on families. Now, the Deputy Minister of Social Development, Bongi Maria Ntuli, made a presentation, I think it's to the Social Development Portfolio Committee in Parliament, and this is what she said. In these times, God was still in control. She's talking to Parliament. God was still raising men and women who desire to see change. A nation should not be judged by how it treated its higher citizens, but how it treated its lower citizens. I'm sure she means the weakest amongst us. To be free was not merely to cut off one's chains, but to live in a way that advanced the freedom of others. True freedom was self-discovery. In order to do that, along with the economy, the family was universally used as one of the centers without which no society could function. The country needed strong families and healthy families at the heart of a strong society. It was also in the family environment that an individual's physical, emotional, and psychological development occurred. She's got that right. It was from our families that we learned unconditional love, understood right from wrong. It's a big thing in South Africa and around the world. People don't understand the difference between right and wrong. And gained respect and self-affirmation. These qualities engage positively at school, at work, and in society in general. The absence of a stable, nurturing family environment has damaging impact on the individual, often leading to behavior that was damaging to society. Now, this is incredible coming from a minister in government, because this is precisely what we see in society today. All the chaos, all the, most of the social ills in society can be linked to the breakdown of a family. So Hetty, as a parenting expert, we're privileged to be able to speak to you. And one of the things I want to raise out of this is the attacks that came against the minister because she spoke the truth in Parliament. And one of the things they tackled her for was this narrow view of the family, this old-fashioned, they called it, old-fashioned family, which is mom, dad, and children. The two-parent biological family was considered by the liberal media and liberal activists as old-fashioned, and we should be moving away from that. Do you agree?
I agree with the minister because I feel she agrees with God's idea, which is that what a mother brings to a family is different to what a dad brings to a family. And it's not about whether mom works or not to say that that's necessarily the line. I think they want to defend the fact that so many people are unable to have constructive long-term relationships because of selfishness. And I know that there are exceptions, and I know that there are reasons where your life is really under threat, etc. But even then, stepping away and getting help and then trying again would be plan A. If we are going to model to children real life, we can never model a way where you live with the back door open. Because you don't have any character, you don't have any follow through, you don't have any stability. I went into a prison recently. I was sharing my testimony about the robbery and rape my husband and I survived 3 years ago, and I was speaking to 77 murderers and rapists in a CMAX prison in Kokstad, and that's where they go when they misbehave in another CMAX. So it's the boys' town of CMAX prisons. So these guys are hardcore criminals, and I stood in front of these 77 men and some of the guards, and I shared the story, and I spoke to them about God's grace and His forgiveness, even in that situation. But I was very real about the implications for me as the survivor, what that was like, telling our kids and so on. So it was a very intense conversation. And then I realized I've always wanted to know what is the impact really of not having a father or growing up without a father. Because I've read, you're reading books, the statistics, generally people end up in prison and a large percentage didn't grow up with parents. And I decided to do my own little experiment here in South Africa. And I said, who of you grew up in a loving relationship with your father? Which could include people who were divorced and still had a loving relationship with their father. So it was very inclusive, the question. And one guard and 2 prisoners put up their hands in a group of more than 90 people altogether.
Wow.
Only two of those people had the stability of knowing a father. And Errol, I bet the moms did their best.
Yes.
I bet they did everything they could. Some of them will, if I had the time, would have told me how their mothers were God-fearing women. But it is just so hard to do it all and to be it all that we cannot promote that as an easy alternative that is equal to the two-parent family.
Now the stats, again, overwhelmingly support what you're saying, because most men in prisons come out of fatherless homes. It's because they didn't have that strong authority figure in their life that they lost their way and eventually ended up in prison. And those statistics is applicable here as it is in the United States of America and other places, that fatherless homes is probably the greatest tragedy of our times. And that's why I'm so concerned when you have activists coming on television and saying it is better for the parents of a child to split, to get divorced, rather than bicker and fight. They don't even consider the option of counseling.
It is huge, Errol. Imagine you as a child seeing your parents not getting along and walking away easily without even really trying very hard.
Yeah.
You are going to deduct from that keeping this family together so that I can have my mommy and my daddy with me, have daddy read me a story in the evenings, was not important enough for my mom to fight for it. That's the message that this mother would convey. If she's so offended by her husband's lies that she's going to write off the marriage based on that, she is saying, I am not willing to forgive one character flaw. The children are going to hear that and they're going to say, maybe I'm also not good enough for my mom because I've also lied. Because they don't have the perspective of the entire situation. It is a selfish thing for us as parents to think we can just wipe the slate clean and start a brand new life. Because we can't. When we've committed into a relationship, we've had children, we've built a marriage, there's no going back and starting over. You can't relive your teenage years, fall in love and go off on the white horse with your prince in shining armor. You can't do it anymore. You've had your opportunity. Now your children are the priority, and they will read into your decisions something about their own value. And I think the easier parents leave, the less children feel valued. And we have the opportunity, even when we work through a difficult marriage, to teach our kids skills that they can use in relationship later on. There's a wonderful program, I think it's called Divorce Care for Kids, that runs concurrently with the Divorce Care for Adults program at churches that I relate with a lot. And they always tell us that the children need the support more, even than the parents do, because they have no skills to deal with that. And it's trauma, because the definition of trauma is change that you are either unequipped for, unprepared for, or unable to deal with. And that is what divorce is. A child couldn't possibly be prepared and equipped. So it's trauma to your kids. I think in the Bible, God calls it a garment that tears and the blood spatters on the children. That's what that image in essence means. Divorce is violence.
That's powerful.
And the blood ends up on the kids, and we see it.
A 24-hour news channel had this young father with his daughter standing over there, and he was saying, the best thing for my child is when I split with her mother, because we were fighting a lot and it upset her. And so now I'm raising her on my own, and it's so much better for her. I said, you know what, if they had to take that microphone and ask the child, was it better for you if when your mom and dad split up? The child would probably say no.
I think that child might even be so deceived because the dad has probably told her over and over again, the best thing for us is not to have all the fights. Do you like the fights? No, you don't like the fights, so let's leave. So I think, in my opinion, if you held a mic to that child's mouth, she would say, it's better that we divorced. But your child is not the measuring stick for what is best. You are the adult and you know better than your child will know. So sitting around with your kids and saying, would you prefer that we went our separate ways so that there is no more fighting? Children might say yes. And they might be 20 years old and still believe it was the best thing. But when they grow up and really mature, they will realize what we have done is we've exchanged one set of problems for another set of problems.
That's right.
It's not a solution. It's the beginning of a different problem. And now we have more complicated things. Now I want to get married and I don't know who's going to sit at the main table. You know, it's a silly thing that a 10-year-old child can never anticipate. But forever now, weddings, funerals, Christmases, all of them are going to be awkward and complicated and blemished by sadness and a sense of loss and longing, and children will have lost that nest of both parents still being there and being available. There is no getting around that.
They justify this by using extremes. You know, the man is beating up the wife, and what we're suggesting, and they say in the church as well, is that women just stick it out but stay in the marriage. And nobody's ever proposed that. Nobody's ever asked a woman to stay in an abusive relationship. If things are not changing, the woman should get out. The church, or I don't think government supports a woman staying in an abusive relationship. And this is what the media puts out there, the liberal media. But the reality is that most of the problems that people experience in marriages is not always physical violence. There is a lot of it, but a lot of it isn't. We found in the research that a lot of people get divorced for very silly reasons. Bickering over finances, whatever it is, jobs, how many children they're going to have, whatever it is, in-laws, and they get divorced, and so easily.
Errol, I think we have also been conditioned in the church to believe that there is such a thing as irreconcilable differences. Because that's all you just get up in court and say, we've tried, but it's not working out. That's grounds for divorce. What does irreconcilable difference mean? It means that I have reserved the right to be me and not to change and not to adapt and not to compromise, and you have made the same decision. So in a sense, when you stand up and say we have irreconcilable differences, you're saying we're both selfish and we don't want to change.
That's
and
right.
we don't want to adapt. Yes, absolutely. If there's violence, if one person is addicted and is depleting the family of all of its resources and is posing a threat to the rest of the family, then intervention is necessary. And then I cannot blame a person for reaching a point where they say, I've really done everything to save this relationship. I do not feel physically safe. I do not think I can protect my children physically or emotionally or spiritually. I am leaving. I can understand that, but it's the exception. When something gets that radical.
That far.
And there's so much to be done. But just to stand up and not even deliver proof in court of the avenues that you have explored to resolve the relational difficulties, to me, is not good enough.
Yeah, I believe that we're in a very selfish society. It's all about me. I'm the center of everything, and if things don't work for me, I get out of it or I change it. But the impact this is having on children, so many young people whose lives are broken, hurt, because their parents got divorced, and this has damaged them. We did an interview with a gangster, a guy that led a major gang on the Western Cape, and we asked him, why didn't you change? Because, you know, the gangsterism is having such a negative effect on your community. You know, they fight and shoot innocent people. And his response was very revealing. He saw himself as a father to this over 2,000 young men that he led in the gang. And the reason why he sees himself as a father is because most of them, or maybe all of them, come out of fatherless homes. They might have a father in the home, but he's not playing any role in the life of that young man. And so they get out in the streets, and the father figure for all these young men is the gang leader. And the family structure is the gang.
Yes.
And so the gang is the alternative to the family, because there is no family, there's no boundaries, there's no structures. So this is what is happening when the family breaks down: gangsterism, prostitution,
Yes.
Alcoholism, drug addiction. So many young people going to drugs, teen pregnancies. It's becoming a pandemic in our nation. And this is what the white paper is actually showing. And government is seeing this, but they're so under pressure from all these liberal groups, these special interest groups. Now it's this, now it's that. But the solution is staring them in the face. And I think this is what the Deputy Minister has alluded to, is that two-parent family, that mom and dad that can try their best to stay together, work through their differences, they're doing the best for their children when they do that, not by splitting.
Yes.
When they give that child a stable, loving home. And that unit, that family, biological two-parent family, is the best unit for the support of society. So it's not only good for children, for the two people involved, but also for society.
Yes. In very practical terms, if one parent is at work, the other person can drive the kids around. It's just the division of the man hours and manpower that you have available that's just more constructive. It's a support structure for each other. The mom can be doing her best, as you said, but if she needs to earn an income now because dad cannot fulfill that void at least partially, she has her kids running amok. No matter what she does, who's going to look after them if there's no support? And because of the divorce, it's not just that home that's split into, the whole family support structure behind it gives way. So your mother-in-law could still babysit last month, but now after the divorce, she's not on your support structure anymore. So you don't just lose one person, you lose a whole family that was part of the village that was supposed to help raising your child. And that animosity and the hurt is your children's legacy. So of course it has that impact. I just think even if you forget about right and wrong and biblical and non-biblical, though we shouldn't, and you just talk about practical matters, there's no way you can defend this as a solution.
Absolutely.
It is a problem.
Now both of us agree, obviously, that strong, stable families is the bedrock of society, that men and women should put a lot more effort in keeping their marriages together, because it's not only good for them, but for their children and for society. What would be your advice to churches, to people there, about restoring society? How do we get back to this ideal of strong two-parent biological families staying together, raising their children in a loving, secure environment? The stats show, and this white paper does as well, that the single-parent family is in the majority now. Two-parent families is in the minority, which is a terrible place for a nation to be. There's also this thing of child-headed homes, where children are heading up the family. Both parents have died because of HIV/AIDS or some other reason. So we're really in a precarious position. How do we turn this thing around?
I think there are three things that I would focus on. The first one being better marriage preparation. Because people go into marriage with a little fairy tale idea of what it's going to be like. They are not prepared to hit a wall in terms of communication. They're not prepared to discover that they're incompatible, whatever, that they don't get along naturally and easily. So better preparation for what it's really about, and encouraging young people to go through a marriage preparation course, or to have a mentoring couple who's a little bit older, who've been married maybe 10 years, who can just get them together around a meal. It doesn't have to cost any money, and just talk to them about the realities and the difficulties, and make sure that they've talked about the intimate issues, and they've talked about children, and they've talked about their financial goals and whatever. So preparation needs to be done properly. Number two, to have courses run in churches and in communities for people who are already married, and always affirming the fact that you have made your decision. When you are married, you are not thinking about whether this is a good idea. You've decided it's a good idea, and you're sticking it out. I love what Dr. Bruce Wilkinson calls the never, never box. And my husband and I have got into the never, never box 21 years ago. And what the never, never box means is that you're saying, even though you give me reason to divorce you, or I give you reason to divorce me, we still choose that we're not going to do it. And in our situation, I have given my husband enough reason to say, well, on biblical grounds and on legal grounds, I can tell you to hit the road. But we are not making that decision over and over again every time we have a fight. We have made the decision 21 years ago. We are sticking with that decision and working it out. So having that commitment, that firm commitment that says, I will never threaten you with divorce, I will never consider it as an option, it's a final decision that I'm going to work with.
And that's what's lacking in our society.
Yes,
that commitment, that decision.
Yes. And then the third thing I would think is to cultivate a culture in which a stable family with fewer challenges will be unselfish enough to kind of move in under a family that's limping, whether one parent died, or whether there was a divorce, or whether there's a threatening divorce, but to take responsibility for the children's sake.
Yes.
To support other families that are going through a tough time. Instead of judging or preaching at them, just moving alongside them, saying, you're going to need a village to raise your child, and we'll be part of your village. We'll support you, whether it be driving kids to school, helping with cooking, maybe putting up a little fund, or whatever is within your ability, just to bear up those families. Because if they are already broken, already separated, it's not the time to say, oh, this is not the ideal. Then it's the time to say, this is our new reality. Let's make the best of this, and we are there to support you. I think that would be the way Jesus would have done it.
That's good advice, Hetty, because if we look at South Africa and societies all over the world, the chaos we see in society, the hurt in young children, all of the social ills, you can trace back to the breakdown of family. When marriages come apart, families break down, entire societies crumble. Society is only as strong as the family. And so we need to begin to put the focus on the family and strengthen those institutions. And the advice you're given here, if our country could just take that, we're on a road to somewhere. So Hetty, thank you for chatting to us. Errol. God bless you and the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to Sing for the King. My name's Jonathan Haller. I'm the program manager at CCFM, and I must say, I've been waiting for this evening for a long time. We're not here to talk a lot about CCFM, but I was asked to give a brief little something about CCFM, and I'm sure most of you know that we're 20 years old. That's older than some people in this auditorium today. Some of the contestants on the stage don't look 20 years of age, but I'm sure they are. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to praise our God. We're here to praise the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And we're here to give thanks to Him for the talent that He's placed in these young people's lives, and the fact that they were willing to stand on this stage tonight and to perform to this incredible audience.
Warm welcome from CCFM side. This is an absolutely historic event in the 20 years of ministry of CCFM, and we'd really like to thank each and every person that has made the effort to be here tonight.
I think that it's funny that 3 months this competition has endured, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that has followed the journey with us from the day. Is there any fans that has been with us from the day, from the auditions, right up until every community concert, right up until tonight here? And I think that it's been very overwhelming for the two of us. This is Cheryl and Freeman who came up with the vision.
And this is Patricia Jacobs that made it happen.
I lifted up. You are high and lifted up. You are high and lifted up. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Somebody help me say you are. I am lifted up. time. Say you are high and lifted up. High and lifted up. High and lifted up. High and lifted up. Sing it again. High and lifted up. High and lifted up. High and lifted up. High and lifted up. You are high and lifted up. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Say, Lord of all, we sing your praise. Say. Say, Lord of Lords, we sing your praise. Creator of the universe, Lord, you are El Shaddai. Elohim, the King of Kings. Oh Lord, keep it there. Say, high and lifted up, high and lifted up, high and lifted up, high and lifted up. You are high and lifted Addio mio bacio, toglierai il silenzio che ti fa
Drum roll, let's do this. The moment that we've all been waiting for. Crowning tonight, Sing for the King 2030 is Asipe!
That's our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed the Sing for the King competition here at the His People Centre in the Western Cape. Good night and God bless you.